have here tonight director PJ Raval, who I would like to reintroduce. And he is going to introduce several members of the film who are here with us this evening.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely did not make this film alone, so I would love to bring my amazing producing team down here, Kara Masanik Alapala and Marisa Hugo. I'd also love to bring the cinematographer, Mike Simpson. And if you can give a warm welcome for two of the subjects in the film, Naomi Fontanos and attorney Virginia Suarez, all the way from the Philippines.
So many of you are here, and welcome. I hope you're having a good time in New York, those who are here visiting as well. I guess just to kick this off, I feel like you might have finished the actual cut of the film somewhat recently, is that correct?
That is correct.
So I was just wondering, have there been any updates, or is almost everything included in the film thus far? I was just wondering if there have been any changes to the story that we might want to share.
You know, I'll actually open it up for that in terms of updates. But yeah, I mean, this film, you know, as you can see, with the postscript that Pemberton is still in U.S. protection in a Philippine facility, appealing his conviction. So I'm not quite sure what the timeline of that's going to be, but that's definitely where it stands. And in terms of finishing this film, yeah, we actually finished it maybe about a week before.
And it is a very impressive list of foundations and partners we have on board, so congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Great
Thanks so much.
organizations. I think we've got so many interesting people up here on stage. Would you like to lead questions with anybody, with your team here, just to kick it off, and then we'll go back to the audience?
Sure, maybe Virgie, if you want to comment upon where things stand in the Philippines in terms of the trial.
In the film, it's still pending before the Court of Appeals. The appeal before the Court of Appeals has already been dismissed. But then, of course, Pemberton and his counsel did not stop there. They appealed before the Supreme Court. So now the case is pending before the Supreme Court, and we expect, of course, a decision sustaining the findings of facts of the Court of Appeals and of the lower court. But then the many issues discussed in the film, human rights violations, discriminations, the pain and suffering of mothers losing their children, these are the things that still happen in the Philippines under the Duterte administration. Mothers are losing their children, so that pain and agony still continue. The many violations, because of the unequal relationship between the U.S. and the Philippines, which brought us so much poverty, the repression of our democratic rights, these are the very things that still continue. And these are global issues. I mean, these are also the things being experienced by many people, regardless of the nationality, regardless of the status. These are being experienced by many people. So that I always say that this is not only Jennifer's story. This is the story of every trans woman, of every woman, of every mother. This is your story, and therefore this story has to be told over and over again, because there's so much to learn. There's so much to realize in this film, and there is so much to fight for all these issues that are being shown or explained in this film. So, thank you.
Before I give any updates related to the movie, can I just make a shout out to a good friend of mine. She's a trans activist in the New Jersey, New York, and Washington, D.C. area. I didn't bring any family with me to the 4 screenings I've attended here in Tribeca, but I'm so happy that there's another transgender Filipino was able to come along and see this movie with me tonight. She's the reigning, she's the 2017 Miss Gay New Jersey USA and the reigning 2018 Miss Gay Washington, D.C. USA. And she's competing at the Miss Gay USA this May. She's Miss Marla Vera. Please stand up to be recognized.
And of course, we're happy, Sal. Thank you guys for being with me tonight. Yeah. So interestingly, one of the lawyers of the Loudest, Harry Roque, is now on the other side. He has crossed to the dark side of the force. He is now the presidential spokesperson of President Rodrigo Duterte. The thing that you saw in the film where Duterte tried to make a donation to the Laude family, that was a reactionary move on President Duterte's part, because the former president, Noynoy Aquino, faced pressure at the height of the case to pay a visit to Jennifer during her funeral. But Noynoy Aquino refused to do that. And so when Duterte won, with Harry supporting his candidacy as president, they made this big to-do about, giving money to the Laude family, just to make Noynoy Aquino look bad and make him more popular. So these are the circumstances where we see ourselves now. And actually, Duterte is a very interesting character because he has flip-flopped on LGBT issues so many times. So during the campaign, he said he was supportive of the LGBTIQ plus community in the Philippines, and then all of a sudden he calls the sitting U.S. ambassador gay, or he used the Filipino slur word bakla. And whenever he fights with a male critic, he always slurs them by calling them, "You're gay, you're bakla." So I have no time for you. And then just before Christmas, he makes pronouncements that, hey, he supports marriage equality. But before that, he was actually saying that, what are these transgender people doing? They're like confusing people. Like, what if I go home and bring someone who's trans, and then I find out that that person is trans? Yeah, so that is him. That is his character. Here you will see that he's supportive of Jennifer Laude in the case, but he has many biases and prejudices against LGBTIQ people. And so the struggle for human rights, the struggle for freedom, the struggle for liberation continues for the LGBTIQ community in the Philippines until now.
Thank you. Well, that's a good point to roll on to. I mean, the film canvasses so many different complex issues, and activism within the Philippines was very apparent. Sort of seemed to be a lot of support, but you must have hit a lot of challenges trying to get this film made along the way, so despite that big show of support and activism. Are you happy to touch on some of those and so what came about, what happened?
Yeah, I mean, just trying to make, I live here in the United States, born and raised in, the United States, so just trying to make a film overseas is a challenge already. Just trying to gather the resources, but thankfully I had a really great, amazing producing team and crew to work with. So that was definitely a big challenge. I think also for me, just a personal challenge was being very conscious about not wanting to impose my point of view, and recognize that I was someone from the outside kind of coming in, but at the same time not being afraid to present the film as my own perspective, right, in the way that I kind of also experienced it, and my perhaps unique perspective as a Filipino American. And so for me, it was also really great to work with Meredith Tolosa, who unfortunately isn't here today, but being able to follow her as an investigative journalist was really great for me because it also paralleled my own kind of investigation. And I think Meredith is someone unique who has, as Naomi says, a foot in both doors, right? And I felt kind of the same way. Like I have a somewhat of an understanding of the culture in the Philippines, but also having grown up here in the United States, it was really important for me to also address kind of the cultural differences, but also recognize that in the process of making this film, I was going to learn a lot. and that you know, the subjects were the ones who were going to teach me and kind of guide me. But also that's, you know, part of making this film, I needed to have just a basic history lesson, because growing up here in the United States, there was so much history about the Philippines that I didn't learn, that I was shocked to learn in the making of this film, which is partially why I wanted to make this. So, so yeah, but maybe some of the producers want to talk about some of the challenges.
And well, I think we probably have some questions from the audience
Sure,
as well.
yeah.
We're happy to let us. Do you have any questions out there? Here we go.
I have read the comment. Bravo. It's fucking brilliant. You just talk to the these complex ideas. And I found very often when I'd be thinking like, why are they going to bring in the history of the Philippines? And then you did. And then I was, you know, just that happened over and over. I think it's just so important for the history of colonization, because the history completely shapes the present. And also, I have a million questions, but I'll keep it short. I wanted to know how you came to the story, TJ, and how the lawyer found the family. Those are two questions. I have a third question. Do you think that it was maybe unprecedented that the murder of a transgender woman would become an international human rights issue? That's amazing. Could you speak to those three things? Somebody?
Yeah, I'll briefly touch on the first question, which is how I came to this story. In late 2014, I got invited to go to Manila to screen some of my previous documentaries, thanks to a filmmaker, Nick Deocampo. And while I was there, it was soon after the crime had been committed, and I ended up on a panel for LGBT rights with Virgie Suarez. And on that panel, I had heard a little bit about the crime, just because it was all over the media in the Philippines and a little bit in my social media feeds, but I didn't really know much. But while I was on that panel, I learned a lot. And Virgie showed a small clip of Nanay, Jennifer's mother, and I immediately, I was like tearing up just watching the small clip of her saying, you know, how, basically the video clip was saying how much she loved her daughter and how could someone do this. And having grown up here in the United States, I feel like there's so much just basic, you know, like it's a shock to find like somehow parents who are accepting of trans children, if that makes any sense, right? But then here I was in the Philippines, and here was this woman saying this, and also during that trip, I was staying in Quezon City, which is almost like saying Brooklyn, I guess, here in New York. And it was one of the first Pride celebrations. So I witnessed all these people out on the street, you know, young, old, children, men and women, parents, who were marching, and some of them were holding up signs, and some of them were holding up signs that says LGBT, we love you. Some of them were holding up signs for Jennifer Laude, and it was such a moving experience that I figured this was also my opportunity to kind of explore, again, kind of that cultural difference in terms of the LGBT community in the Philippines. And so soon after that panel, I went to lunch with Virgie and a couple of the trans activists, and out of that came me making this film. And just really briefly, at first, I didn't think I was maybe the right person to make this film. I thought, oh, someone from the Philippines should probably make this, maybe one of the activists, someone who's already on the ground. But then it became clear to me, maybe me as a Filipino American would be able to bring a unique perspective, but also my position as an American to be able to use my resources here. And I have to give a shout out to Ann Del Castillo, who is a friend of mine, who I spoke to her on the phone, and she said, you need to make this film because I don't think a Filipino can make this film. And if they can't do it, you know, someone needs to be able to do this, and you should be able to use your own resources to do that, so.
Okay, when I handled the case, there have been, and still, there are so many challenges. First, it's a 3 to 4 hour drive from my place, and therefore, immediately on the third day that Jennifer Laude was killed, I immediately decided to live in Olongapo and live with the family. I had to do that because I had to have my own investigation of the case while the police are actually investigating the case. I'd like to see, you know, the struggle within the family, if there is. I'd like to see how the community look at the case. I'd like to see how the business community look at the case and how's the life in Olongapo. That was a challenge because I have to leave my family. Of course, at this point, I'd like to recognize that my youngest daughter is here, George, because when I fought this case, I was of course fighting this case also as a mother. I mean, I cannot imagine losing my children in such a brutal manner. I mean, losing them alone is something that I cannot fathom or imagine. So, you know, and then the family is a poor family. Of course, you cannot expect any financial assistance from them. So again, it is a challenge for me to handle the case pro bono. And it's so difficult. I have to commute, take a bus from my place, going there will take 4 hours, so I might as well live with them. And the trial, it took us like 3 days in a week. So it's a marathon trial. We have to do that because under the VFA, if you're not able to finish the case within the year, Pemberton will be out of the Philippines, will be brought to the United States. So again, that was a big challenge for us. But the challenge, of course, we accepted the challenge, but you know, because of the support of the trans women, because of the support of the Filipino people, because of the many protests, rallies, and activism, and we were able to, you know, I mean, take all this challenge and get over it, and still, we're able to win the case. Of course, now it remains a challenge because Pemberton is not at all detained in the National Bilibid prison. He is in a special facility, U.S. facility, inside our at a military camp. And of course, he is already serving his sentence since 2015. So, I mean, I believe there remains many challenges in the case because the defense never, the defense never stopped in trying to settle the case. You know, all these things that you saw in the film, they would go to the family without even informing us. They would even tell the Nanay Julita not to inform me. I mean, there was even a time I was telling PJ, I have to go to Leyte, where Nanay is. It's in another island. I have to go there on December 26th, right after I celebrated my Christmas with my family, because I learned that the U.S. soldiers, the U.S. embassy were there. So I had to go there. And so these are the many challenges, these are many things, the difficult times that as a lawyer I experience. Of course, these are the things also that are, not so much known to the public. But again, sometimes you come to a point where you just have to take the challenge. You come to a point where you just have to defend yourself, defend your country, defend a mother, a daughter, a trans woman. And that is something that we should do regardless of whatever, despite of everything. Thank you.
Thank you for all your response. And thank you to start wrapping it up. But thank you, PJ, and thank you everybody so much for your responses tonight. And thank you to the audience for coming to the film. Thank you for screening the film here at Tribeca. I believe there is one more screening on Sunday.
Yeah, they've added a screening on the 29th.
So please tell your friends to go see that.
8:30 at Regal Battery Park. And don't forget to vote.
And don't forget to vote. Thank you, everybody. Please, a round of applause.
And you can find us on callhitthembad.com, on Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. So thank you. Thank you.